Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome everyone for today's study of the Srimad Bhagavad-Gita. Today I've been assigned with text 25, 26 and 27. So we'll read the shlokas and the word-to-word meaning translations. Text, maybe for 27 we can recite together, and for 25 and 26 I'll recite. Text 25. Bhishmadrona pramukhat sarveshvancha mahikṣitam uvacha partha pasyetan samavetaṃ kuruniti. Word-to-word meaning. Bhishma, grandfather Bhishma. Drona, the teacher Drona. Pramukataha, in front of. Sarvesham, all. Cha, also. Mahikṣitam, chiefs of the world. Uvacha, said. Partha, O son of Pritha. Pasya, just behold. Etan, all of them. Samavetaṃ, assembled. Kurun, the members of Kuru dynasty. Iti, thus. Text 26. Tatra pasyat stitham partha pitrin atha pitamahan acharya matulam bhratrin putram pautram sakim statha swasuran suhridaschaiva senayorubhayorapi. Word-to-word meaning. Tatra, there. Apasyat, he could see. Stithan, standing. Parthaha, Arjuna. Pitrin, fathers. Ata, also. Pitamahan, grandfathers. Acharyan, teachers. Mautulim, maternal uncles. Bhratrin, brothers. Putran, sons. Pautran, grandsons. Sakin, friends. Tata, two. Swasuran, father-in-laws. Suhridan, well-wishers. Cha, also. Eva, certainly. Senayor, of the armies. Ubhayo, of the both parties. Api, including. Text 27. Tan samīkṣya sa kaunteyaḥ sarvān bandhūn avasthitān kṛpayā parayāviṣṭo viṣīdann idam abravīt tan samīkṣya sa kaunteyaḥ sarvān bandhūn avasthitān kṛpayā parayāviṣṭo viṣīdann idam abravīt tan samīkṣya sa kaunteyaḥ sarvān bandhūn avasthitān kṛpayā parayāviṣṭo viṣīdann idam abravīt. Word-to-word meaning. Tan, all of them. Samīkṣya, after seeing. Saha, he. Kaunteyaḥ, the son of Kuntī. Sarvān, all kinds of. Bandhūn, relatives. Avasthitān, situated. Kṛpayā, by compassion. Parayā, of a high grade. Avasthitāḥ, overwhelmed. Viṣīdann, by lamenting. Idam, thus. Abravīt, spoke. Translation. When the son of Kuntī, Arjuna, saw all of these different grades of friends and relatives, he became overwhelmed with compassion and spoke thus. We will read the translations of 25, 26 and 27 together and read the purports of 25 and 26. Translation for 25. In the presence of Bhishma, Drona and all other chieftains of the world, the Lord said, just behold Partha, all the Kurus assembled here. Purport. As the supersoul of all living entities, Lord Krishna could understand what was going on in the mind of Arjuna. The use of the word Rishikesha in this connection indicates he knew everything. And the word Partha, or the son of Kuntī or Pritha, is also similarly significant in reference to Arjuna. As a friend, he wanted to inform Arjuna that because Arjuna was the son of Pritha, the sister of his own father Vasudeva, he had agreed to be charioteer of Arjuna. Now, what did Krishna mean when he told Arjuna to behold the Kurus? Did Arjuna want to stop there and not fight? Krishna never expected such things from the son of his aunt Pritha. The mind of Arjuna was thus predicted by the Lord in a friendly joking. Translation for 26. There Arjuna could see within the midst of the armies of both parties his fathers, grandfathers, teachers, maternal uncles, brothers, sons and grandsons, friends, and also his father-in-law and well-wishers. Purport. On the battlefield, Arjuna could see all kinds of relatives. He could see persons like Bhurishrawa, who were his father's contemporaries, grandfathers Bhishma and Somadatta, teachers like Dronacharya and Kṛpācārya, maternal uncles like Salya and Shakuni, brothers like Duryodhana, sons like Lakshmana, friends like Ashwathama, well-wishers like Kritavarma, etc. He could see all the armies which contained many of his friends. Translation for 27. When the son of Kuntī, Arjuna, saw all these different grades of friends and relatives, he became overwhelmed with compassion and spoken thus. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Patakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakānvitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Shri Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanostute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Before I just begin the class, I seek for everyone's blessings so that I can speak for my own purification as well as a service to Prabhupada and my spiritual master and to all the assembled devotees. So, Hare Krishna. So we are in the first chapter entitled Observing the Armies on the battlefield of the Kurukshetra. So this chapter is also known as Sainya Niriksha Yoga as well as Arjuna's Vishadha Yoga. So the section we are transcending from observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra to Arjuna's Vishadha Yoga. So we will see why it is called Vishadha Yoga. First of all, in this chapter there are 46 verses. The first section is 13 verses which talks about the preparation of the war. We have seen the preparations of the war. And the second section discusses the signs of victory, the 7 verses declaring how there are signs of victory on the Pandava side. And the third section, which is currently what we are dealing with, it is 7 verses, text number 21 to 27. It describes how Krishna is acting as a Bhaktavatsala. And the section 4, which will be starting from tomorrow, It comprises of 19 verses, 28 to 46. It is Arjuna's doubts. So in today's verses 25 to 27, I have divided the class in 3 sections. So first we will be discussing about how Krishna acting as a Bhaktavatsala. Then we will see into analysis of observation of the armies from the eyes of Duryodhana as well as from the eyes of the Arjuna. And the third section will be talking about managing our affection. And these 3 sections we will summarize and we will have a conclusion. So in the first section, we want to highlight how is Krishna is Bhaktavatsala here. Can anyone say how is Krishna Bhaktavatsala, acting as Bhaktavatsala?
He agreed to become a chariot.
Yes, he agreed to become a chariot. And we see on the cover page of every Bhagavad-Gita, this is what is printed. We see that how Krishna, although he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he agreed to take the order of his pure devotee. He wanted to carry out the orders of the pure devotee. That's one, that he is acting as a Bhaktavatsala. And also in the purport of 25, the word Rishikesha, Prabhupada indicates that he knew everything. What does that means? He knew everything means Rishikesha means the one who is the owner of all the senses. And not just of his senses, but he's the owner of all the senses of all the living entities who surrendered to him in accordance. So here in the battle of the Kurukshetra, he is directly controlling the transcendental senses of Arjuna. So he is already knowing what is going in the mind of Arjuna, what will happen. So he's already saying, behold, just behold Partha, all the Kurus are assembled here. So he's he's mentioning here already that, okay, I know what are you thinking, and what kind of emotions are going to come to you. So are you going to let go all the Kurus and you're not going to fight? So he's giving a hint already that he knows. And also, I want to read something. This is a lecture, a short lecture. Prabhupada spoke about the meaning of Rishikesha. This is in Johannesburg, October 17, 1975. This is a lecture on Bhagavad-Gita 2.1 to 11. And Prabhupada talks about Rishikesha. Rishikesha means Rishikesha means senses, Isha means the master. Therefore, Krishna is the master of senses and everyone's senses. How? He is residing in everyone's heart as a super soul, and he is the Paramatma. And he is directing everyone according to their activities, their mentalities. And then Prabhupada says that the hand is created by God or by Krishna through the agency of material nature. But I am given the hand to use it for my purpose, for my eating and for my collecting. That means we have to engage the senses in Krishna's service. Otherwise, the purpose of the hand is lost. So Prabhupada gives an example that just like in a house, in a rented house, we are living. And if the proprietor of the house is landlord, he asks you to leave. Then we cannot live there. So similarly, if we use the body for the real proprietor, then the Rishikesha will allow us to stay there. Therefore, Krishna's name is Rishikesha. So what is Krishna conscious movement? That means we are accepting the senses from Krishna. That means we should be using the senses in Krishna's service. So, but instead of using it for Krishna, if we are using for sense gratification, that will lead us for the miserable condition of life. So, just like if we are living in a place for which we have to pay the rent, and if we don't pay the rent, then we will be in trouble. So Rishikesha means he is the real proprietor. Krishna is the real proprietor. So he has given us the property. So we have to utilize it for his service. So here the the Kurukshetra battle is also in accordance with Krishna's plan. It is Krishna who wanted this battle to happen because he wants to wipe out all the weeds, all the bad forces that is existing on the earth. Of course, Krishna has given everyone a fair chance. There were peace negotiations before the battle has even ensued. But the bad forces, Duryodhana, Dhritarashtra, and all the evil forces, they want to usurp the rightful claim of the Pandavas. So now the decision has been made already. Now Krishna is telling Arjuna, now what do you want to do with the Kurus? You want to forgive and let them go? So, and Krishna has taken the order from Arjuna already. Arjuna asked Krishna to place the chariot, and then Krishna placed the chariot exactly before the Bhishma and Drona, so that they could see. Bhishma, Drona, Pramukhata. That means they were the most important chieftains. They are the most important warriors of the war. And Krishna placed the chariot in such a way that Arjuna could see both Bhishma and Drona. So when we accept the direction of the Lord, we actually become happy. But if we act according to our own material senses, for our sense of gratification, that will just lead us to the material life. So here Krishna is indicating that, Arjuna, you have to fight according to my direction, because I know I am the owner of all your senses. Now we will see the second section, which is the analysis between observation of the armies from the both ends. Now we have seen in the verses 2 to 11, Duryodhana first observes the army, right? We remember. He sees who is in the Pandavas' side. And then later he describes who is on his side. And he started to glorify how great these warriors and how experienced these warriors before the Pandavas warriors. But what were his inner feelings? He was affected by fear. There was great enmity. And then to conceal his fear, he acted in a very diplomatic way. He goes to Bhishma and he goes to Drona and he tells them, I consider you as the important. And he wanting to get an assurance from Bhishma and Drona that they are not favorable to Pandavas. And then we come to the section where Arjuna starts to observing the armies, the 26 and 27. Now the chariot is placed between both the armies, in the Kauravas and Pandavas. And then Arjuna started to see. What does he see? He sees in the midst of the armies both the parties. He sees fathers, grandfathers, teachers, maternal uncles, brothers, sons, grandsons, friends, and also his father-in-laws and well-wishers. So he sees everyone, and the only thought that's flashing in his mind, that he just says that they all are my relatives. And he sees how the whole family has come together to engage in a brutal war. And interestingly here, grandfathers doesn't mean that it's only Bhishma Dev. There is another king called King Bahilika. He is the elder brother of Santanu. Santanu is the father of Bhishma. That means he is the uncle of Bhishma. So there is uncle of Bhishma, and the contemporaries like Somadatta. Somadatta is equivalent to the Bhurishwara is contemporaries to Pandava and Dhritarashtra. So they were there. They were great-grandfathers, grandfather, father, and Pandavas and Kauravas, and then they see the sons like Lakshmana, and then they see friends, they see well-wishers, and also great-grandsons like Abhimanyu. They all are engaged in the war. So we see how Arjuna is overwhelmed already just seeing all the relatives. Now, if we go back 2 verses back, in the text 23, Arjuna, before he ordered Krishna, what does he say? Let me see those who have come here to fight, wishing to please evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra. His mindset was so different in text 23, before he saw the whole armies. He wanted to see the enemies who were supporting the evil-minded Dhritarashtra. So at that time, his mind was fixed that Yudhishthir was virtuous, Krishna is the Lord of virtue, and Kauravas are vicious. So I am in support of supporting the virtuous people. I am engaged in service of the virtuous people. But as soon as he sees the vision of both the armies, instead of seeing the evil-minded people, his perception has changed. His perception has changed that I'm just seeing my relatives. So what does this mean? That the visual perception is depicted that although we may see through our eyes, if we don't process with our intelligence, then we will be dragged into illusion. And that's what happened to Arjuna in text 27. He is overwhelmed with compassion. And in 28, we will see how his limbs will be quivering. And then he will start to give reasons why he doesn't want to fight. So, this also gives us a lesson that whatever we see may not always contribute to the reality. For example, we see the material world, but although there is a reality, it is a temporary. But the actual reality lies in the spiritual identification. We see the material bodies, but we don't see the spirit souls. So if we identify only with the material bodies, then our understanding is still illusioned. But when we are able to see the spiritual when we can identify the spiritual identity of the living entities, that is the time we are actually seeing the living entities as they are. It is also said in 435, I'm sorry. Yes, 435. Having obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never fall again into such illusion. For by this knowledge, you will see all the living beings as but part of Supreme, or in other words, that they are mine. What does it mean? That means if someone is in knowledge, they see all the living entities as part and parcels of the Supreme Lord. This is the epitome of the knowledge that should come to us. This is the viṣīdann. The realization of the knowledge should allow us to see all the living entities are part and parcel of the Lord. So here, Arjuna's seeing has put him into illusion already, because he is already considering everyone as the relatives. But as we see the progression of the Bhagavad-Gita, we'll see that how he starts hearing from Krishna, it will bring him out of illusion. That means seeing will cause us illusion, but hearing will dispel the illusion. So it is necessary that we hear more than we see. We see things through our ears. And in Srimad Bhagavatam 177 from the first canto, 7th chapter on 7th shloka. Yasman vai shruyamananyam Krishne parama purushe bhaktirutpadya bhumsa shoko moho bhayapaha. Simply by giving oral reception to this Vedic literature, The feeling for loving devotional service to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, sprouts up at once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. Isn't it the same thing happened to Arjuna at the end of the Bhagavad-Gita? That he had got fixed up in his devotion and his service to Krishna, and at once he could give away the lamentation and illusion and fearfulness, because he was afraid that there will be fear of sin. He was afraid that he will be losing his relatives. But as soon as he heard the spiritual talk from Krishna, his love and his devotion was strengthened, and he was able to give up. And Prabhupada gives a very beautiful example in this purport, 177, that he talks about ear. Ear is an active organ. It is active even when someone is asleep. And Prabhupada talks about an example that one can protect oneself, like the hand can protect a man when only it's awake. But the ear can protect the man even when in sleep. Say for example, someone is attacking you, or someone is going to stab you or something. So by the sound you wake up and you protect yourself. It's just by the ear. So simply hearing the Vedic literature, Srimad Bhagavatam, one gets a direct connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. And then they can attain the highest perfection of life, as well as they can transcend the worldly miseries, illusion, fearfulness, and lamentation. And Prabhupada gives, how do we know that we are hearing? If the practical test is given here, that if we are hearing, then we won't be affected by lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. So our hearing should take us to cross this ocean of lamentation, shoka, moha, bhaya, like misery, lamentation, and illusion. So this is the practical test. And if we are not there yet, then we should be practicing it. And the third section I was thinking is the managing affection. This is another important angle that we see here. This is an important aspect in devotee's life as well. Let's analyze here. What is the cause of this fratricidal war? That means, why are brothers killing each other in this war? Why are they coming together? Because one of the cause is the mismanagement affection of Dhritarashtra. He didn't manage his affection for Duryodhana very well, especially for his sons, especially Duryodhana. He never corrected Duryodhana. Instead, he supported him. That destroyed the whole Kauravas. He supported the gambling match. He supported the disrobing of the Draupadi. He supported the exiling Pandavas. And he supported all the injustice that were played against the Pandavas. So, we need to understand the difference between affection and attachment. So, let me ask you a question. Is affection such a wrong thing? Don't we have affection? We have. So, why is Dhritarashtra's affection is not good here?
Because his own interest is vested in Duryodhana.
He was obsessed.
Because his own personal interest, his wish, his desires also, he's trying to use his interest in Duryodhana.
Exactly.
Suppose I'm a mother, I have a child. If I have a desire and I use him,
Yes.
this is my vested interest.
Yes.
I'm using him.
Yes.
And I'm not looking for his good wish or his personal desire.
Yes.
Or his
Well-being.
proper well-being.
Yes.
That
Yes.
is what mistake he did.
Yes. So this is the difference between having attachment and affection. Attachment means there is an intense desire and there is something for one's own contribution, like I can enjoy out of this. But affection means we are concerned about the well-being of the other person. So as a devotee, we need to learn to have affection but not attachment. So that means affection is spontaneous, but it should also be cultivated over a period of time. Like for example, a mother having a little child. It's very natural that the mother will have affection for the child. And one cannot deny that affection. But at the same time, if the mother doesn't correct the child when it is time for the child to be corrected, then if that affection is no more affection, is a deep attachment only. We see this in the example of even Bharat Maharaj. Bharat Maharaj has left his sons, his wife, his palace, his kingdom, everything that was very dear to him. He left and he went to the forest. But what happened in the forest? He invested himself in a small deer. That means compassion is needed. Compassion has to be shown. There is no doubt the baby deer was in trouble and Bharat Maharaj helped. But he invested in the deer in so much that he neglected his spiritual practices. And this is the fault. The similar thing Dhritarashtra has done. He has not drawn that line that this is not right. There should be justice to be played between Pandavas and Kauravas. He was not equal, he was partial. He was interested only in his own sons getting the throne. He was interested that in only him being the king of Hastinapur. And a similar thing we see now, Arjuna is also being drawn into a compassion, so-called compassion. But again, this compassion is not good enough. It is not here, he is not showing affection, but he is displaying attachment to the bodies, to the relatives. And this is what Krishna will be correcting. That's why he starts correcting, saying that how we are not the body, but we are the spirit soul. And Prabhupada gives a beautiful analogy in 2.1 Bhagavad-Gita purport. Compassion for drowning man's dress is senseless. Simply rescuing his outward dress is useless. But compassion for the eternal soul is called self-realization. So why does Krishna come from time to time in this material world? To establish Dharma. And what is Dharma? What is the meaning of Dharma? Dharma means which is the inherent characteristic of something. And what is an example of, if we take the example of sugar, what is the inherent characteristic of sugar? Sweetness, yes. And what is the inherent characteristic of water? Liquid. And what is the inherent characteristic of a living entity? To be servant of Krishna. And so here Arjuna is withdrawing with his so-called compassion from his duty, from being an instrument in Krishna's hand. But Krishna will be correcting him that I want you to be an instrument in me establishing the Dharmic principles. And why Dharmic principles are to be established? Because all the living entities are perverted. They have turned their faces from Krishna. By establishing religious principles, they have a chance to turn back to Krishna. They can engage back in their eternal dharmic situation, constitutional position. In their eternal relationship, they can revive that relationship with Krishna. So that's why Krishna comes again and again to establish religious principles so that the pious, they can progress, and the miscreants, they will be punished. And in Srimad Bhagavatam 1-10, it talks about kamasya nenindriya pritir labdo jivata yat yavata jivasya tattva jignasa nato yascheha karmabhi. Life desires should never be directed towards sense gratification, but should desire only for a healthy life of self-preservation, since a human being is meant to inquire about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's work. Out of many, many millions of species of life, human form of the life only where we can actually inquire into the absolute truth. So our desires, our attachments should not lead us only for sense gratification, but it actually should lead us to finding about the absolute truth. And Prabhupada says, the completely bewildered material civilization is wrongly directed towards fulfillment of desires and sense gratification. And this is what Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana, they are doing. They are just interested in their own sense gratification. And today's society is also in the similar way. In such a civilization, in all spheres of life, the ultimate end is sense gratification. And to what extent this sense gratification has taken that there is a fratricidal war. This is a brutal war occurring on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. In politics, social service, altruism, philanthropy, and ultimately in religion or even in salvation, the very same tint of sense gratification is ever increasingly predominant. So, how are devotees different? How are devotees of the Lord will be different if one engaged in their dharmic position or in service of Krishna? The seekers of the absolute truth are never allured by unnecessary engagements in sense gratification. Because the serious students seeking the absolute truth are always overwhelmed with the work of researching the truth. Because the devotees are interested in the final goal, to find out their relationship, to revive their relationship. In every sphere of life, therefore, the ultimate end must be seeking after absolute truth. And that sort of engagement will make one happy because he will be less engaged in varieties of sense gratification. So the Lord, he says, he incarnates in every millennium. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanadhaya sambhavami yuge yuge. He comes in every millennium. He appears millennium after millennium to deliver the pious, to annihilate the miscreants, and to re-establish the principles of religion. So in this millennium, how does Lord came? He incarnated in the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is spreading the worship of Krishna by spreading the Sankirtan movement and by congregational chanting of the holy names. So the devotees of Lord Krishna are very much attracted to the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya. This avatar does not kill the miscreants, but actually delivers them with causeless mercy. So we don't need to be engaged in the battle of Kurukshetra, but we just need to be engaged in the Sankirtan movement. That will kill all the anarthas, that will remove all the obstacles and impediments that are not allowing us to become a devotee. So we have seen there are three sections. We have seen first initially how Krishna was acting as a Bhaktavatsala. He was carrying out the order of Arjuna, he was acting as a Rishikesh, and he was already indicating that he knows what is in the mind of Arjuna. And then we have seen different observations from the angle of Duryodhana as well as angle of Arjuna. Duryodhana was full of enmity, whereas Arjuna saw everyone as a relative and he was overwhelmed with compassion. And then how managing affection is essential. If we don't manage affection in our relationships, it becomes our attachments, and then that won't allow us to progress in our spiritual life. So, in conclusion, the living entities who are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord are in the material world suffering. But when they are instructed about the Bhagavad Dharma, there is a victory for the Lord as well as for the living entities. Because the purpose of the for the Lord to come into this material world is to revive the living entities and take them back home, back to Godhead. Savai pumsa paro dharma yatho bhakti radokshaje ahaituki apratihata ye atma suprasidati. The supreme occupation for all humanity is that by which men can attain loving devotional service unto Transcendental Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted in order to completely satisfy the self. So taking to Krishna consciousness is first step, and also bringing fallen souls to Krishna consciousness is actually the victory to Lord Krishna. So I finish here. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If there are any corrections or questions or comments, please.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Thank you.
One quick question I have regarding affection and attachment. So how will we know that this is actually affection and attachment?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so if that doesn't allow us to perform our spiritual duties, if it takes us away from our spiritual duties, like you see the example of Bharat Maharaj. He went to the forest, he attained the bhava platform, but then because of a deer, he lost everything. Right? And the similar thing that is going to happen to Arjuna. Arjuna is falling into this attachment for the relatives. And then slowly he will say that I don't want to fight. Right? And then after listening to Krishna's instruction, he will understand he will use bhakti-yoga. And he will understand, he will analyze. Yes, I want to become an instrument. So, that which doesn't take us from the devotional service is good. Because our life's final goal is to direct us, somehow or the other we have to direct ourselves back to Krishna, back to the devotional service. Yes, there will be challenges, yes, there will be impediments, but we also see there's so many devotees have walked this path right before us. And there are so many devotees who are going along with us and before us. So we can always take guidance. Where am I at? Am I doing right? Am I focused enough? How can I revive? Because there will be challenges at every stage. Right?
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah. But there is a fine line that we have to draw between this attachment and affection. We see in the example of Yudhishthir as well, when Yudhishthir understood that Krishna left this planet and he enthroned Parikshit Maharaj as the emperor, he gave up everything, and he decided to leave, like he renounced and he wanted to leave. And he didn't say even a word, according to the Bhagavatam, he didn't say even a word. And all his brothers also understood, and they also followed him. And Draupadi and Subhadra, they also understood and they left. Because they were trained that the ultimate goal is to go back home, back to Godhead. But are they not very thickly bounded as brothers all their life? But they could draw, okay, I have given enough training. Prabhupada writes in that purport as well. That's 1:15:50. That at the end of the life, everyone has to fly their own aeroplanes. But the training is given on the ground. But when it is time to fly, everyone has to fly their own aeroplanes. So all our life, we will be going with guidance. That's my understanding. Thank you.
But nowadays, who will teaching devotion to their children who are giving?
Well, that's why we who are giving. See this little child here. He's trained.
Not ISKCON, I'm not outward people.
then we have to go and preach. If they are not becoming devotees, then we have to go preach. This is the victory for Krishna. That's what Prabhupada says in 6:16:20 purport. The victory of the Lord is, first we have to become Krishna conscious, and then we have to bring the fallen souls to Krishna consciousness. This will be the victory for Lord Krishna. We don't need to fight a battle like Kurukshetra, like Arjuna. We don't have that battle. But we have a Sankirtan battle.
But we are teaching also our own relatives only not understanding about Krishna.
We do our part. But sometimes, Mataji, we cannot even just assess on that basis. Because sometimes, you sow the seeds. The farmer goes into the field and he sows the seeds. But sometimes the seed doesn't grow in his lifetime. The seeds will be transforming into plants after his lifetime. Like coconut, mango, macadamias. They take years and years to come. But the weeds come quickly. But you never know how you're going to impact the other person. Every plate of prasadam that's going out, it's changing someone's heart. Every book that's been distributed, it's changing someone's life. Every person who is coming to the temple, their life is impacted in one way or the other.
But
We can just become an instrument only.
But in my experience, if sufferings are there, means in our life, we will understand Krishna consciousness.
We don't need to worry. Material world is full of it. Material world is full of it. It will give its kicks at one time or the other. Yeah. So, yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Prabhu.
Mataji, as Arjuna was having affection for his grandfather and teacher,
Yes.
and he was lamenting that how can I kill this one?
Yes.
My elderly persons.
Yes.
But Arjuna and Krishna is convincing him,
Mm.
and he is speaking so much to him. After that he understands that my duty is to kill them.
Yeah.
But Krishna is speaking to us.
Mm.
So similar in our life,
Mm.
we have affection for our family, for relatives, for brothers, for sisters. That affection, how can we give up? We understand.
We don't need to give up.
Krishna is explaining here everything to Arjuna.
Uh-huh.
So we also have to be detached from the family affection. So how we can do that?
We no need to give up our affection. Our affection can be displayed by bringing them to Krishna consciousness. We don't need to give up. We are human beings. We have our emotions. You will see in tomorrow's purport, Prabhupada starts the purport saying, any man who has genuine devotion to Lord has all good qualities, which will be found in godly persons or in demigods. So compassion, Arjuna's compassion is not, crossed away. But in the similar way, we can have affection. But that affection should not pull us back from our spiritual practice. But instead, we should be inspired to give them Krishna consciousness. Because affection means seeing what is their well-being. That they are part and parcels of the Lord. And they are away from the Lord. Now they have to come back to Krishna. This is the highest way of displaying affection. We don't need to give up. We are not practicing detachment alone. We are practicing bhakti. And detachment is a byproduct of it. Knowledge and detachment are byproducts of bhakti. But we are reviving our natural situation, loving Krishna. Detachment will come if we are by over a period of time with our knowledge and with our experience and with our service, with the blessings and guidance, that detachment will be coming to us.
In this connection, I have to say something.
1 second, we will finish. Yes, bro.
And then it's just like our family member, they are materialist person.
Yes.
And to teach them sometimes is very difficult.
Yes.
Just like Prabhupada family also was not completely his wife and they were not completely favorable. But Prabhupada left them. And how this thing you can discriminate and speak something on that one?
Well, did Prabhupada really left them? Because Prabhupada left them, but also Prabhupada made a bigger family. The preaching is always going on. And their family members have the credit. Definitely they have a credit that they have Prabhupada in their lives. I believe that some of them have also been initiated devotees. Yeah. They're also initiated devotees. What we are saying is like on the top. We may not know what exactly is Krishna's plan. If Prabhupada was not put in that situations, will Prabhupada would have traveled to the West? I don't know. Would Prabhupada would have given and started the Sankirtan movement? I don't know. So there is Krishna's hand in Prabhupada's life. We see that. But again, their family members, they would have also benefited. There's no doubt about it. Anyone who comes in contact with a pure devotee is benefited. So why they would be lost?
It's not a question of benefiting. I'm asking the question how Prabhupada left his wife and children. My question is...
So, okay. Then if we want to make such decisions, then we have to take guidance. We can't just be abrupt. Because we may not know our situation better. So we should always seek guidance. Am I acting right? How should I act with my family? Am I overly getting attached or am I affectionate enough? We need to seek guidance. Prabhupada made that decision because Prabhupada is Prabhupada, his pure devotee. But I am not. So if I'm not able to draw the line, then we have to ask someone who can help us to make that distinction. That's my understanding.
Even one more thing, what happened? Prabhupada did not leave the family. It was the wife who said, I want tea. He asked, you want tea or me? He was ready. He gave a choice. You please take me. But she said, I want, better than you, I want tea.
Yeah.
Choice she made. So that is the reason Prabhupada had to leave.
Yes. But that is also Krishna's hand.
In devotee's life, always I have seen, in devotee's life, I have always seen this thing happening that devotees want to be with the family, but it's the family who's trying to dispel them. Because they are into the karmic world, they are into the materialistic world, and they don't want to get attached to Krishna, they don't want to be into goodness of life, good moodness, passion or good moodness of life. Then what does that devotee do? This is the fact of devotional service.
But I also heard in one of the example, like I think Radhesham Prabhu was telling, that he met one brahmachari and he was making so many of his family members as devotees. So it's not that, you should always leave your families. Being a brahmachari, he was helping so many people to become devotees. So we just need to be kind and compassionate and affectionate, that's all.
Patient.
Affectionate to them. In such a way that they come closer to Krishna. If not today, tomorrow, definitely. If not tomorrow, then someday after. We have to sow the seeds, but wait for the results. Even Prahlad Maharaj also, in the Prahlad Maharaj pastime also, it's said, right? If there is a pure devotee, 14 generations, front and back, they are liberated.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's 7 generations, otherwise 3 generations. What does it mean? They don't just quickly go back to Godhead. But I heard that all those people in those generations, they get a chance to come in contact with a devotee. They come in chance to get contact with a pure devotional service. They will have a chance. So we may not be able to preach to them, but we becoming Krishna conscious and we being kind or affectionate to them and doing as much as we can, that will also help them to come in touch with bhakti. If not today, tomorrow. Yes, last we will finish with you. Yes.
I have to say something about affection and attachment. In 18th chapter, Bhagavad-Gita, in the last, after hearing Gita, Arjuna said, Nashto mos mekti labdha tavat prasad mayachit sthito asme gasanne krishya vachanam. That by your grace my illusion has gone. These are not my relatives who are standing in the battlefield. You are my relative. I will obey you. I will Krishya Vachanam.
Yes.
And every devotee should take this line, Krishya Vachanam. We are chanting, but we are not surrendered to the Lord.
We are in the process. We are in the process. Thank you so much. Please, yes, Mataji. Yes.
Because Prabhupada, he was a family person, so while he was successful, even his God brothers many times said that he was Grihastha, he was a
Yes.
person who was doing business, and he was a big manager. So by all his abilities, he used them. when he
Yes.
was preaching.
Yes.
How it was possible to attract hippies. People
Yes.
from rich family in America, already detached on the ground with their girlfriends, friends, without proper dresses, proper food. He start to cook and feed.
Yes.
He start to show his
Love, affection.
many of them, there are 16, 17, 18, 19. They say that even joke that the only adult in ISKCON was Prabhupada. Others they were just kids. And because he showed this affection, just feeding them, this showed they start to come and show their affection and service to Prabhupada. It worked. His all abilities, what he had in his practice of family life, in his
Please forgive me for my shortcomings. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.